Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Hare Krishna. So we will resume our study from the Bhagavad Gita, and as you can see, wherever we go ahead in our study of any scripture, we will see that the foundation is Bhagavad Gita. Yesterday we were discussing the glories of Srila Srivas Pandit. When you see any Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associate, you will perfectly see what is given in Bhagavad Gita. So they are manifesting those qualities, those attributes which Krishna is asking. Yesterday, while I was preparing for Srivas Pandit, I could clearly see is dealing with Gopal Chapal, or is dealing also with Devanand Pandit. He never considered anyone his enemy. He is Adveshta Sarva Bhutana, Maitri Karuna Evacha, and he is Nirmama, completely free from all possessions. Rather, whatever is his possessions, he always accepted that position in service of the Supreme. So he could serve. He could serve without any restriction, without any impediment. And Krishna is speaking in the 12th chapter. We saw Krishna is speaking in the 2nd chapter. And again, Krishna is speaking here in the 16th chapter. That a devotee means divine qualities. So these qualities endure one to become dear to Krishna. So in our practice and in our journey of Krishna consciousness, as we consciously try to cultivate, inculcate these qualities, we will see, we will come closer to Krishna. And these are divine godly qualities. In the 15th chapter, which we discussed twice. 15th chapter is the chapter we have so far discussed twice in this forum. So Krishna spoke about this material world, this material creation, which is like a upside down banyan tree. Urdhva moolam adha shara. So in discussion, we saw that there are lower and upper branches. And the fruits of this tree was not discussed. What are the fruits of this tree? That will be discussed in this chapter, which is the 16th chapter. So that is the connecting point. Krishna describes the fruits of the tree, which are of two varieties. Good fruits, which are divine qualities, that is Devi Sampati. And the bad fruits, which are the demoniac. The demoniac sampada. So the good fruits cause the liberation. Good fruits are the pathway to be freed from the entanglement of this material existence. And the demoniac nature or the bad fruits cause one's bondage to continue in this material existence. So the glories of Bhagavad Gita, one of the glories says that Sansara Sagaram Ghoram Tartam ikshati yo nara Gita navam samsadya paramyati sukhena sa. That this sansar is sagaram ghoram. It is a very, very vast ocean. This ocean is a very deadly ocean. Deadly ocean in the sense that whoever wants to swim or cross over the ocean has never been successful. He gets drowned. So if one wants to really cross over, if one wants to get over this ocean of material existence, tartum ikshati yo nara. That fortunate soul who wants to be freed from this sansara sagara. So what he has to do? Gita navam samsadya. He has to be seated in the boat of the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. If one is seated on the boat of the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, he will paramyati. He will be able to cross over, and how? Sukhena sa. Happily, without any distress or struggle. So let us see the 16th chapter. Although you people have given presentation, but we will continue it in a flow. 16th chapter is in 3 sections. The first six verses talk about the divine and demoniac nature. So we will take the first 3 verses. This speaks about the 26 divine qualities. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayaṁ Sattva-Saṁśuddhir Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ Dhanam Damascha Yagnascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodhas Tyaga Shantir Apeshunam Daya Bhuteshu Aloluptvam Pāṇḍavam Hera Chapalam Teja Shamadhriti Shaucham Adroha Nati Manita Bhavanti Sampadam Devim Abhijatasya Bharata. So Krishna is speaking about the 26 divine qualities. This, we have seen how the branches of this trees are nourished by the 3 modes. So the mode of goodness that nourishes these divine qualities are and numbered here as 26. When we will study the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are also 26 divine qualities of a devotee is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Many of them are common, the qualities which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna speaks about these divine qualities, and he says, Abhijatasya, that how it is decided, that it is decided through birth. So, okay, we will first see the translation and some part of the purport before we begin to discuss. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, that is Abhayaṁ, purification of one's existence, that is Sattva-Saṁśuddhir. This is one quality. Sattva and Saṁśuddhir is the second quality. I mean, the first quality is Abhayaṁ, and second is Sattva-Saṁśuddhir, which means purity of one's existence. That means purity of one's consciousness. Cultivation of spiritual knowledge, that is Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ. One who is making an attempt to cultivate spiritual knowledge. So all of us, those who are seeking, those who are studying, those who are attempting to gain knowledge from Shastra and particularly from Bhagavad Gita. So that is, the person is in Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ, cultivation of spiritual knowledge. This is the third item. Then charity, which is Dhanam. Damas, which is self-control. Performance of sacrifice, which is Yajnas. Study of Vedas, which is Swadhyaya. There are 2 different aspects. One is Jnana Yoga Vyavasthita, which is cultivation of spiritual knowledge under the guidance of a spiritual master. And the other is Swadhyaya, which is Vedic study. Austerity, which is Tapaha. Simplicity is Arjavam. Non-violence is Ahimsa. Truthfulness is Satyam. Freedom from anger is Akrodhas. Renunciation is Tyagaha. Tranquility is Shanti. And aversion to fault finding is Apeshunam. Compassion for all living entity is Daya Bhuteshu. Freedom from covetousness. Covet means that there is a desire to obtain what others have. That is what the material world is filled with, envy for others. Why? Because how can anyone else be better? Or whatever he has, why he is having, I should have. So divine qualities, that one is freedom from covetousness. It is aloluptvam. Lobha. It is coming from greed. Lobha. So one is freed from greed. He does not desire to possess what others are having. Then gentleness. This is Mardhavam. Modesty. It is Hri. Then steady determination, which is Achapalam. Chapala means which is unsteady. Chanchala or Achala. This is Achapalam, which is steady determination. Vigor means Tejaha. Forgiveness, which is Shamaha. Fortitude, which is Dhriti. This is strength, mental and emotional strength. Cleanliness, which is Shaucham. And freedom from envy, which is Adroha. And freedom from envy and from the passion of honor. It is Na Ati Manita. These are 26 numbers. So Krishna says, these transcendental qualities of son of Bharata belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. So those who are nourished by the mode of goodness, they will exhibit these godly or divine qualities. So in the purport, Prabhupada connects to the 15th chapter. In the beginning of the 15th chapter, the banyan tree of this material world was explained. The extra roots coming out of it were compared to the activities of the living entities, some auspicious and some inauspicious. In the 9th chapter also, the devas or godly and the asura, the ungodly or demons, were explained. Anyone remembers? In the 9th chapter, where Krishna is explaining about the devas and the asuras in connection to what we are discussing now. In the 9th chapter, Krishna has briefly spoken about it in the 9th chapter. No one remembers. Krishna speaks about both the swabhavas or the sampada. Mogasha moga karmana, moga jnana vichetasa, rakshasima shurim cheva, prakritim mohinim ashrita. Which verse is this, Kana? You forgot? You had memorized 9th chapter, if I remember.
Yes, Prabhuji.
But I think you have completely forgotten. You have not practiced it. I think it is 9.11. 9.11. And then Krishna speaks about the divine nature, which is the next verse. You remember the next verse? Mahatmanastu mam partha devim prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananya manasa gyatva bhutadim avyayam. So Krishna is contrasting that those who are moga ashaha, who are having many aspirations, there are people in this world, a busy plan making. Why? And how they can be happy or how they can enjoy in future. So Krishna is saying they are all mogha. Mogha means they are all fools. They are all fools and rascals because all their plans will be reduced to dust. None of their plans will see the reality. So why? Because, and they are engaged in mogha karmana. So if you see that verse, Manish, show that verse. Kana, you show. You are not writing Kana. Quickly show that verse. Moga asha, moga karmana, moga jnana vichetasa, rakshashe mashurim cheva, prakriti mohini mashrutam. So three aspects Krishna is saying. That moga asha. So anyone who has any aspirations which is other than the spiritual aspiration, it is bound to see the failure. There is no other way. And then moga karmana. So any activity which is not Krishna conscious activity, that activity itself is inauspicious because that will bind the living entity.
Prabhuji, which verse is it? I could not hear.
9:11 or 9:12. Hear attentively. 9th chapter, most confidential knowledge. Prabhupada is writing here in the purport, in the 9th chapter also the devas are godly. Yeah, 9:12. Okay. Why? Because they are under the influence of Rakshasim Ashurim Cheva, Prakriti Mohini Ashrita, because they are under the demoniac nature. So such people, those who are under the illusionary energy, they are all Asuri. So if one is not a devotee, he is for sure, he is under the illusionary energy. And illusionary energy means that his behavior and his existence both are demonic. Rakshashim, Ashurim Chaiva. Krishna is speaking both. He did not stop at speaking Rakshasim. He uses the second word also to put focus. Is Asurim. Asurim Prabhupada is translating as atheistic, demonic. So those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. And in that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. But in the next verse, Krishna is assuring Arjuna that you don't have to worry, my dear Arjuna, because you are a Mahatma. So the next verse. Mahatmanastu mam partha devim prakritim ashrita bhajanti ananya manasa yatva bhutadim avyaya. So those who are Mahatmas, they are under the shelter of my Devi Prakriti, my divine energy. So they can never be bewildered. They are never bewildered. Because they are under the protection of my divine nature. And why and how they are protected? Because they are bhajanti ananya manasa. They are always rendering service without deviation or without any interval. And they know Krishna to be the supreme, the origin and inexhaustible. That is what one is Krishna conscious and is engaged in devotional service. So how to know that who is divine and one who is demonic? Very simple, this characteristic. That he is both Krishna conscious and is engaged in devotional service. Okay, you can close it. So in the 9th chapter, Krishna has just briefly mentioned about it. You can close, Kana, the screen share. Close it. Now, according to Vedic rites, activities in the mode of goodness are considered auspicious, for progress in the path of liberation, and such activities are known as Devim Prakriti, transcendental by nature. Those who are situated in the transcendental nature make progress on the path of liberation. For those who are acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, on the other hand, there is no possibility of liberation. Either they will have to remain in this material world as human beings, or they will descend among the species of animal or even lower life forms. So those who are not able to cultivate the mode of goodness, those who are not able to cultivate these qualities, then either they will remain in this material world, or most likely they will glide down to the lower species of life. And of course, whether they remain in this material world, or even if they come back to the human form of life, the possibility of liberation is very extinct. Prabhupada says that there is no possibility of liberation. In this 16th chapter, the Lord explains both the transcendental nature and its attendant qualities, and the demonic nature and its qualities. He also explains the advantages and disadvantages of these qualities. So Krishna is giving a detailed discourse on divine and demonic nature. The word abhijatasya, in reference to one born of transcendental qualities or godly tendencies, is very significant. So, to beget a child in godly atmosphere is known in the Vedic scriptures as Abhayaṁ samskar. So this is how one can beget a godly child with divine qualities. If the parent wants a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles documented in the social life of human beings. So instead of going for all these samskars, these are the reformatory samskar, the simplest way to reform and to transform is to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. When devotees get married and they want to have a child, so we don't tell them to do all this samskar of Garbhadhan. But before the union of the mother and the father, it is recommended that both the mother and the father, they chant that day minimum 64 rounds. So that will create a very divine atmosphere so that a divine soul is attracted to come. So in our Vedic way, there are reformatory activities, the Dasha Samskar. So one of these samskar, it is before the child is born. So there is Garbhadhan Samskar. And when the child is born, there is Jata Samskar. And when he starts to eat, what is that samskar known? Annaprashnan Samskar. And then before he starts to study, then there is Yagyopavit Samskar. And then there is a Vivaha Samskar. So, and in the time of his leaving his body, there is also samskar. So at every stage of life, there are samskar for purification. In Bhagavad Gita, we have studied also before that the sex life for begetting a good child is Krishna himself. Which verse is that? In Bhagavad Gita. For begetting a good child is Krishna himself. What happened? All the study of so many years of Bhagavad Gita, has it been erased? Yes, Suman? Yeah. Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bhartarishubha. So the sex life means to create good progeny, to have Krishna conscious child. Sex life is not condemned, provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. Those who are in Krishna consciousness at least should not beget children like cats and dogs. So Prabhupada is condemning the contemporary way of begetting children, because mother and father both are Krishna unconscious. And what the child is also Krishna unconscious, is demoniac. And Prabhupada is comparing to their begetting the children as compared to the cats and dogs. They should beget them so that they may become Krishna conscious after birth. That should be the advantage of children born of a father and mother absorbed in Krishna consciousness. The social institution known as Varnashram Dharma, the institution dividing society into 4 divisions of social life and 4 occupational divisions or caste, is not meant to divide human society according to birth. Such divisions are in terms of educational qualifications. So Prabhupada is mentioning about the Varnashram system. The division is on the basis of occupation. And Prabhupada says this is the division which is based on qualifications. They are to keep the society in a state of peace and prosperity. The qualities mentioned herein are explained as transcendental qualities meant for making a person progress in spiritual understanding so that he can get liberated from the material world. That is the purpose of Krishna presenting Bhagavad Gita, is to release everyone who is in this material existence, in this human form of life. He can come to the platform of gaining knowledge to become liberated, to be freed from the influence of the modes, from the influence of the karma, from the influence of kala. In the Varnashram institution, the sannyasi or a person in the renounced order of life is considered to be the head of the spiritual master. Head or the spiritual master of all the social statuses and order. A Brahmana is considered to be the spiritual master of other 3 sections of society, namely the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas and the Shudras. But a sannyasi who is on top of the institution is considered to be the spiritual master of the Brahmana also. Although the caste Brahmanas, they do not still, because of their pride and of their ignorance, they do not accept the sannyasi to be their spiritual master. But whether they accept or not, the fact remains that as per the Shastra, as per the injunctions, the sannyasi is the spiritual master of all the 4 orders, including the Brahmanas. For a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness. So now Prabhupada is discussing this divine qualities. The first quality is Abhayaṁ, is freedom from fear. And what does a sannyasi means? So many times we have discussed. Sat means the supreme absolute truth. Even if you see like this, S-A-T, Sat, it is supreme absolute truth. And Nyasi means one who is renounced. So one who is fixed in the supreme absolute truth, in the Param Satya. And one who is released or freed from the material existence which is impermanent or temporary. One who is fixed in Satya and one who is released from Asatya. Such a person is Satnyasi or Sannyasi. So the natural quality that he will exhibit is fearlessness. Why? Because he is freed from the bodily conception of life. Fear is only there in the bodily conception of life, because body takes birth and dies. And the biggest fear is death. But for whom this fear exists? One who is in bodily consciousness. One who has crossed beyond the bodily consciousness, he will exhibit always to be fearless. So Prabhupada is mentioning here that this, for a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness. Because the sannyasi has to be alone without any support or guarantee of support. He has to simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So to the extent one is dependent on the Supreme, to the extent one has taken shelter of the Supreme Lord, to that extent the person can become fearless. Because fear is exhibited by the illusionary energy. How? By considering oneself to be the product of this material nature, which is body. So to the extent one is fixed in Krishna consciousness, one has taken shelter of Krishna, he can be free from fear. If one thinks, after I leave my connections, who will protect me? He should not accept the renounced order of life. Very categorically, Prabhupada is saying that if one is not dependent on Krishna, or one who thinks that Krishna is not capable to take care of him, such a person should not take sannyas. Even such a person cannot take to Krishna consciousness. Even for us in brahmachari life, if we are not dependent on Krishna, if we do not have faith in Krishna, then one cannot be in this order. Otherwise, what he will do? He will do all kind of not required activities. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his localized aspect as Paramatma, is always within, and he is seeing everything, and he always knows one what intends to do. One must thus have firm conviction that Krishna as Paramatma will take care of a soul surrendered to him. Now, this is one of the symptoms of Sharanagati, surrender. What is that? Avashya rakhive Krishna Vishwashapalan. If we see from the life of Srivas Pandit, he had such strong, unflinching faith that Avashya rakhive Krishna Vishwashapalan. Never that faith was ever wavering, whatever may come. I shall never be alone, one should think. Even if I live in the darkest region of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna. So Krishna is there everywhere. Krishna is there present in the heart of every living entity as Paramatma. So one is never alone. One is never ever alone. Because with the Atma there is Paramatma, even in the material existence. And he will give me all protection. So this is the conviction which was there in the heart of which character? Which character who was always convinced of Krishna's protection? Even in the darkest region of the forest. Not even a speck of doubt, but no fear in the heart. All alone, far in the darkest region of forest. Dhruv Maharaj and Mother Suniti, just a 5-year-old boy. He was sent to go to forest to find the Supreme Lord and see the conviction of his mother. She is sending her only son to the forest. Why? Because she had this conviction that one is never alone, ever. The Supreme Lord seated in the heart is always accompanying. So there is nothing to fear. Why? Because the Supreme Lord is always accompanying us. Of course, that does not mean that we create nonsense or trouble for us. Even if I live in the darkest region of forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna and he will give me all protection. That conviction is called Abhayaṁ. Bhaya means one is independent. He is not learned to be dependent on Krishna. So fear will be inflicted. This state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. I have noted one Srimad Bhagavatam verse 215. Rana, show that verse. Second canto, first chapter, fifth verse. Talks about fearlessness. Abhayaṁ. And how can be one free from all miseries and fear? This is the verse. Tasmad Bharat Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Abhayaṁ Smartavya Ichchata Abhayaṁ. So if one wants to be free from fear, what he has to do? Tasmad. Tasmad means therefore of the conclusion. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from the miseries or fear must hear about. What he has to do? How to be free from fear? Shrotavya. To hear. Then Kirtitavyascha, glorify, and Smartavyascha, and to remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller and the savior from all miseries. So one can become Abhayaṁ. Come down. Come down, come down. Wait. Prabhupada says, therefore one should first of all hear about the Lord. Then one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds. And thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing and glorifying, Shravanam and Kirtanam, are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And by so doing, one will always be in association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. This is the secret. Close it. So we are trying to follow the path which has been shown by the Supreme Lord himself. Shrotavya Kirtitavyasa Smartavyasa. So constant hearing, and after hearing, one who has properly heard, very inspired by the write-up which was shared by Sonika yesterday, and today I was reading the write-up I have not shared of Pranab Prabhu. With so much of heart and participation of the heart, the rasa is flowing. If you can really have that rasa tasted, it will drench you. You can drive in that, you can swim in that rasa. So, Shrotavya Kirtitavyasya. And after so many years, for so many years I was hearing. And now Krishna has given a chance to speak. So we must glorify. And if we are doing both, Shrotavya and Kirtitavyasa, Smartavya, then we will remember the Lord. If we remember the Lord is there in the heart, there is no question of fear. One becomes fearless. Not only becomes fearless, he becomes flawless. So for a sannyasi, if he is not at that stage, if he is not free from fear, one should not take sannyas. I'll tell you one practical incident which happened when Srila Prabhupada, in his pastime from 1965 till 1977, he circulated the globe 14 times. So Prabhupada was a very frequent traveler. He would travel so much. I think he would be holding one of the world records at that time when he was preaching. Because every third day, Prabhupada was flying. And huge distances from one continent to another continent. So when you travel in plane, you have seen many times that there is turbulence. Have you experienced turbulence? The plane starts to shake, and then there are, bumps in the planes. And many times the pilot loses control of the plane. The plane gets stuck in some air pockets, but there is a lot of turbulence. So there was one episode, Prabhupada was flying from America to Europe. It was a long flight. And the flight was in turbulence. And when the flight is in turbulence, if you have seen, I don't know whether you have witnessed or not. Once or twice I have witnessed not serious turbulence, some, little turbulence. So people start to scream, shout, call for help, those who are weak-hearted. So once it happened that Prabhupada was traveling, and with him was his disciple, I think Harishwari Prabhu writes in his diary. Prabhupada just concentrated on chanting the holy name. He remained in his seat and he just chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra till the time everything became peaceful. Why? Because there is no fear in his heart. And when the turbulence was over, so the co-passengers, they were thanking Prabhupada that Swamiji, because of your chanting, we were safe. Prabhupada did not speak a word. He did not give any impression. Once Prabhupada was preaching in, again, Europe, and Prabhupada was speaking about the glories of the holy name. And there was one newcomer who was there in the assembly. He stood up and asked, Swamiji, you are telling us to chant Hare Krishna. But what about you? What is your experience when you chant Hare Krishna? A newcomer hippie. He arrogantly stood up and at the face of Prabhupada, he asked this question. And immediately Prabhupada replied that I feel no fear. And when this hippie, he heard this reply from Srila Prabhupada with such conviction, he was completely convinced that this man, that Prabhupada, what he is speaking, he has realized. And few days later, he took Diksha and became Prabhupada disciple devotee. And he is the person who has compiled the memories of Srila Prabhupada. There is a book, compilation of memories, where all Prabhupada disciples, most of the Prabhupada disciples are sharing their memories. His name is Siddhanta Prabhu. He is the one who has compiled. So this is the quality of a person who is Krishna conscious. How to know he is a person who is a Krishna conscious? No fear in his heart. It's fearless. Whatever may be the difficult situation, he is never bogged down. He never gives up. Why? Because he knows that the ultimate control is in the hand of Krishna. Maro bhi rakho bhi jo iksha toha. Nij das prati tuva adhikar. So you have the right. So as we become Krishna conscious, as we progress in the path of Krishna consciousness, this quality will exhibit, is of becoming fearless. Why a devotee is able to do what the others are not able to do because of this quality. He has no fear. Others are thinking, what will happen to me? What will be the consequence? But we know what will be the consequence. Consequence will be that if we have the opportunity to serve Krishna, Krishna will be pleased and will be protected. The second quality Krishna speaks is Sattva-Saṁśuddhir. Then one has to purify his existence. There are so many rules and regulations to be followed in the renounced order of life. Why only renounced order of life? We are also following rules and regulations. Are we not following rules and regulations? We are following the 4 regulative principles. We are following the regulation of waking up early, taking bath, chanting 16 rounds, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, accepting only Krishna Prasad, performing services. So in every order of life, if there is order in life, there has to be rules and regulation. And what are the purpose of rules and regulation? Is to purify our existence. Sattvam Saṁśuddhir. So how Shuddhikaran will happen is to the extent we follow strictly the rules and regulations. Most important for all a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to have any intimate relation with a woman. So that is the nishedh. Do's and don'ts. He is even forbidden to talk with a woman in a secluded place. Lord Chaitanya was an ideal sannyasi, and when he was at Puri, his feminine devotees could not even come near to offer their respect. So that is maryada. That is the etiquette of a sannyasi. Not only of a sannyasi, for anyone. They were advised to bow down from a distant place. This is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is a structure imposed on the sannyasis not to have close connections with women. Why? Because in the conditioned life, this is the greatest attraction or the cause of bondage. Is natural, there is attraction for the opposite gender. So how to be able to control that? By disassociating. Becoming purified by following the rules and regulations. And physically tying to avoid any intimacy or closeness. Then Sattva-Saṁśuddhir. So we see in the 4 regulative principles, Shaucham means cleanliness, or purification, both which is inside and outside. And what is the regulation for Shaucham? Is to avoid illicit sex. So this is for Sattva-Saṁśuddhir. That means one's existence should be purified. So at our level, what is important is to follow strictly the rules and regulations. To convert the impure heart, to convert the impure mind, to convert the lusty intelligence to become pure by strictly following the rules and regulations. Prabhupada says here, one has to follow the rules and regulations of a particular status of life in order to purify his existence. For a sannyasi, intimate relation with women and possessions of wealth for sense gratification are strictly forbidden. So sannyas means that he gives up wealth, women, and mind. He has no connection, does not connect with it. The ideal sannyasi was Lord Chaitanya himself, and we can learn from his life that he was very strict in regards to women. Although he is considered to be the most liberal incarnation of Godhead, accepting the most fallen conditioned soul. He strictly followed the rules and regulations of the sannyas order of life in connection with association with women. One of his personal associates, namely Chota Haridas, was associated with Lord Chaitanya along with his other confidential personal associates. But somehow or other, this Chota Haridas looked lustily on a young woman, and Lord Chaitanya was so strict that he at once rejected him from the society of his personal associates. Lord Chaitanya said, for a sannyasi or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to the spiritual nature and go back home, back to Godhead, for him looking towards material possessions, both material possessions and women for some gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking towards them with such a propensity, is so condemned that he better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires. So these are the processes for purification. Prabhupada so many times quoted the example of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur had a disciple. His disciples were both husband and wife. And once, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's disciple, that Mataji, she approached Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj and said, I have some inquiries, I have some questions, and I want to ask you. But Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj refused her, saying that it cannot be in private. You have to have your husband along with. Then only I can answer or I can meet you. Although she was a Shishya. So strictness is required, regulation is required. Otherwise, what will happen? What Krishna says, illicit connection. And instead of purifying one's existence, what one will do? One will glide down to the hellish life. One will commit adultery. So rules and regulations are there to save us, to safeguard us from gliding down or falling down. And to the extent strictly we observe, we will be secure and safe. Dharma rakshati rakshita. The one who follows the path of dharma is saved by the principles of dharma or by the law of dharma. Okay. The next item is Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ. This cultivation of spiritual knowledge. Being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. Sannyasi life is meant for distributing knowledge to the householders and others who have forgotten their real life of spiritual advancement. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from door to door for his livelihood, but this does not mean that he is a beggar. Very, very offensive if one considers a sannyasi to be a beggar. Why he begs? It will be a sannyasi. Okay. Humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendently situated person. And out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes from door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and awaken them to Krishna consciousness. This is a duty of a sannyasi. If he is actually advanced and so ordered by spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding. Shiva Prabhupada is practical. Prabhupada is saying how we have to preach with logic and understanding. And if one is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. So Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ. So how one will preach? If one is himself not trained or oneself is himself not equipped, how can he give to others? But even if one has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from the bona fide spiritual master. So anyway, somehow, whether one is in sannyas or one is not in sannyas. So how one can be situated in Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ? Prabhupada is giving the practical solution. Prabhupada is saying that he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. A sannyasi or one in the renounced order of life must be situated in fearlessness, Sattva-Saṁśuddhir, purity, and Jnana-Yoga, which is knowledge. So these first three qualities are foremost, or is a must to be exhibited, those who are in the order of sannyas. Okay, I'll stop here. I won't take a class more than 1 hour. I want to sleep in time. Any discussion, any question, or any contribution? Abhayaṁ Sattva-Saṁśuddhir, Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ. So we have discussed the first three qualities to some extent. So we should check that whether these three divine qualities, whether they are being cultivated, they are being developed, whether we are progressing in this path or not. Where are we leading? Hare Krishna. Suman Dolamani Prabhu is still not returned. Okay. Bole contribute. How much in our heart this quality of Abhayaṁ is being cultivated. In our practice of Krishna consciousness, these so many fears that we had, whether they are reducing, they are, or they are increasing, what is happening? What is the status? Sattva-Saṁśuddhir. Jñāna-Yoga-Vyavasthitiḥ. कुछ नहीं है चर्चा करने को तो फिर बंद करें. Yes, Manish Prabhu.
Prabhuji, about this cultivation of fearlessness, I generally try, Prabhuji, I think whenever I have Sangha, these classes, so it is lasting, but many of the times, Prabhuji, it is fluctuating. So how to strongly practice this one, that even though we hear Prabhuji try to practice, but still fluctuation is there. So how to it means cultivate strongly, Prabhuji, this one.
Very good. Good. Whatever is there at the practical level you are inquiring, honestly. So we saw that verse 215. Shrotavya kirtitavya smartavya. So how the beginning of the progress is by hearing attentively. Hearing, as you are hearing, taking notes, applying your heart, applying your intelligence to know about Krishna, to hear about Krishna. What is the purpose to know and hear about Krishna is to glorify Krishna. So we keep Krishna in center. So we see to the extent we are Krishna conscious, we will be free from fear. Fear comes when we put ourself in the center. And our self means what? Our body, our mind. And body and mind are both asat. So there is this infliction of fear of failure. Why? Because all those material plans are there. The material plans are what? To try to enjoy separately from Krishna. And we have a fear that my plans will not come true, or my dreams will not come true. There is a feeling of insecurity from within. So what we have to do? We have to give up such useless plans. In any way, they will all be defeated. Krishna is saying, Moga Asham, Moga Karmana, Moga Jnana Vichetasa. So all this will be baffled, they will be spoiled, they will be defeated. And then we are always constantly having fear of what will happen if they do not become successful. That fear is already constantly being inflicted. So give up such bogus plans. You depend on Krishna. Fear means independent. Independent existence means fear. To the extent we are dependent, see, this is what Prabhupada is speaking. If you see the purport properly, fearlessness comes from being dependent on Krishna. We were seeing yesterday, when Srivas Thakur and his brother, they were performing Sankirtan. Everyone was against. Everyone was planning to kill them, to drown them, to burn their house, or to throw them in Ganga. But they did not stop. That time Mahaprabhu did not advent also. For hardly few devotees. But he was not having fear. He was free from fear. Why? Because they were performing for the pleasure of the Lord. So we should have our dependent plan, not independent plan. Independent plan means that we are putting ourselves in the center. That means we want to enjoy this world. Entire world is thinking that this is a place for enjoyment and happiness. And they are making so many plans and trying their entire lifespan to try to fulfill this plan. And all of their plans are demolished, they are destroyed at the stroke of death. Not just at the stroke of death, even before death. So all that fear which is there in the heart is because of having this feeling of failure. Where is the need to have such useless plans? As to the extent we are free from self-absorption, to that extent we can be free from fear. To the extent we are absorbed in the self, one can never be free from fear. It will be inflicted more and more by fear. So that variation is there. Whenever you feel fearful, please analyze what is the reason of fear. Where there is, why I am having this fear? When we are dedicating our life in service of Krishna, what is there to fear? You will see immediately that the influence of the fear will be over. There's no fear. Prabhupada was fearless. How can he, an old man, 75-year-old, 80-year-old man, go to America and say you are all fools and rascals? In a public gathering, he would directly challenge and, call them as fools and rascals. That scientists, big scientists are all fools and rascals. Big politicians, presidents and prime minister, they are all fools and rascals. Why? Because he was always dependent on Krishna. Prahlad was so fearless. To speak of Prahlad, I spoke about one Maharaj. He was surrounded by the Muslim bandits and they wanted to kill him. There was no fear in his heart. There, if Krishna wants me to mare Krishna rakhe Krishna mare ke, no fear. So to the extent we are becoming Krishna conscious, to the extent we are becoming dependent on Krishna, to the extent our plans are in accordance with the plans of Guru and Krishna, we can be free from fear. To the extent we are still harboring our own plans, our independent plans, or how I can be happy, or how I can enjoy this world, to that extent, the factor of fear will remain influencing us in our life, in our existence. So what we have to do, Manish Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Mostly we have to become more dependent, Prabhuji, whatever the principles are given, instructions are given, and build our faith more strong on Krishna. And that conviction has to come that Prabhuji, Krishna will protect us always, because that conviction is going out again and again. So that is why that fearless.
So there is something which is parallelly also coming on.
Yes.
That
yes.
parallel track has to be removed. Then there is only one track, which is Krishna's track. The trouble is we have two tracks. So that parallel track has to be given up. You attempt and see. My one senior, he was sharing with me that he was in saffron dress. He was speaking to someone outside. That fellow was telling that आपके लाइफ में तो अब कोई आपके पास चारा नहीं है. He was thinking that you have become bechara. Why? Because you have already accepted this order. Now you cannot change. So he said that is very good for us that we cannot change. Now we cannot go to the other track. But what about you? Will you ever be able to come on the track? You have already lost the track. And what is the possibility for you to come on the track? You will keep finding new tracks and keep circulating in those tracks. Life will be over. So we should have Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekaha Kurunandana Bhahushaka Yanantascha Buddhyo Vyavasayina. So remember this principle. Whenever fear is there, Bahushaka Yanantascha Buddhyo Avyavasayina. Give up that speculation of the mind which is making us feel or believe that independently I can be better. That is Mohinim Prakriti Mashrita. Mogashaha. Moga Karmana. Moga Jnana Vichetisha. Krishna is clearly saying, Rakshasi Mashurim Cheva. Prakriti Mohini Mashrita. They are all baffled. They are fools and rascals. So don't allow our mind to divert us, to distract us, or to degrade us. Integrate our mind, integrate our heart, integrate our efforts, integrate our plans, integrate our aspirations. There is no fear. Srivas Thakur had no fear. Mahaprabhu is saying, you are not earning. How will you sustain this big family? Yeah, he's clapping. 1, 2, 3. What 1, 2, 3? You are not seeing you are part of us. You are an integral part of our yatra. If you ask our treasurer, he is there. How it is happening? I also don't know. But happening, somehow happening. Magical, mystical. Ganesh Prabhu, happening or not happening? With or without money, happening or not happening? every time happening. How much is our dependence? Just small fraction of a percentage. Did I ask you to pay for the entire yatra? No. You are asking me what to pay or what to pay. So why we are not having that faith, that conviction? That maintenance is done by Krishna. Maintenance is not done by money or by my resource or by my asset. And what to speak of spiritual part? Whether I become a scientist or whether I am recognized as a scientist or not, let me become a devotee. Let me become an instrument of Krishna. And it is up to Krishna how to utilize me. Whether he wants me to be a big scientist or he wants me to be a small-time practitioner, up to him. Prabhupada was spreading Krishna consciousness since 1944. When did Krishna give success? After 1966. But Prabhupada never left. His conviction become weak. So our fear is only there because we have something which is separate from Krishna. That is the reason for fear. Fear is only in material existence. In spiritual existence, there is no fear. We have done that in the first chapter. What is the verse? Abhayaṁ dutiya abhivineshasya. Abhayaṁ. We're talking about Abhayaṁ. And where is Abhayaṁ coming? Abhayaṁ is coming from material existence. Yeah. 11:237. Open Manish Prabhu, you open this verse. This will be the last verse. Again, it is 9 o'clock. But good that we are discussing. 11:237. Excessive attachment for material possessions, put one is fear. Yeah. See, Abhayaṁ. See the word meaning? Abhayaṁ is fear, which is dvitiya, in something seeming to be other than the Lord. Abhiniveshata, because of absorption, syat, it will arise. Come down. See the translation. Read.
Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is effected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and as his very life and soul.
Then fear means that we are absorbing in illusionary energy. That means we are trying to enjoy separately from Guru and Krishna. Our plans are different from the plans of Guru and Krishna. Okay, minimize it. So please check it. Whenever there is fear, inquire what is the cause of fear. And then dependence is there. Take shelter, inquire. Will you free from fear? When Bhishma Pitama, being incited by Duryodhana, he took a vow the next day he will kill all the 5 Pandavas with his 5 bows. And he took out 5 bows from his quiver and he charged it with mantras and said, next day with his 5 arrows, I'm going to shoot all the 5 Pandavas. And the day was over. And Krishna is thinking, what will happen next tomorrow? Krishna does not have to think. And when he went to the camp of Arjuna, he saw Arjuna was happily sleeping. Rather, he was snoring. So Krishna shook him up and woke him up. And, hey Arjuna, how are you sleeping? You are having sleep. He said, what happened? He said, don't you know that what Bhishma Dev said today? He's going to kill all 5 brothers of you tomorrow. And you are getting sleep. You'll be killed tomorrow. He said, how can I be killed? When you are protecting us, how can I be killed? This is for Bhishma Dev to think. How can he kill us when we are protected by you? And he again went to sleep. How can Bhishma Dev kill? To the level of dependence we have, we will be free from fear. And to the extent we are still maintaining that independence in our heart. How? By having independent aspirations. The factor of fear will exist. How to minimize it? So whenever such plans are coming, whenever such aspirations are coming, we should reveal it and be free from it. Let it pass by. Because we are in this material existence, it will not be that it will not come. It will come. But don't become attached to it. Don't give importance to it. As it comes, let it pass. Try not to be affected. How? Reveal. Speak. That is what Guhyam Akhyati is. Revealing the heart in confidence. Not allowing that aspiration to take ground in the heart. Very dangerous. That is why we see so many come and there's so many leave, because they are harboring something inside which they are trying to hide. Then one cannot progress. Then one cannot become fearless. A spiritual practitioner means that he is getting free from fear. Why? Because he is taking shelter of Krishna. He is dependent on Krishna. And then he does not have his own aspiration. Then where is fear? What is fear for? Fear is only for material possessions. If the material aspiration is not there, where is the question of fear? So check in our heart. Okay, thank you very much. Because of your inquiring, we could discuss Abhayaṁ to such length. Unless and until you inquire, it cannot go in depth. So the conclusion is, to the extent we are harboring independent aspirations, independent ideas, independent plans, we will be inflicted by fear. There is another beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the one of the principal verse which made Narad Muni give Srimad Bhagavatam to Vyasadeva. So he explains to Vyasadeva. We will discuss some other day, not today, because then our regulation will not be followed. I was wanting to close before 9, I have already crossed 9. I want to sleep before 10. This is one regulation which I am trying and I am repeatedly failing. So I don't want to fail again. And I all want that all of you sleep before 10. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad. Okay, so now we have set up the theme. Krishna is very kind. So this chapter will flow now. Before Ramanavami, we will try to complete this chapter. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Upasthit Savi Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. And please read the write-ups of our devotees. They are pouring their heart in sharing what they are feeling. Hare Krishna.